A group of people can achieve incredible feats under visionary leadership. By definition, a visionary is a person with original ideas about what the future will or could be like. The important word here is original, because originality distinguishes a leader from a manager. Managers follow current best practices, while leaders aren't shackled by current thinking. Leaders inspire other people to push the limits by showing them a path they didn't know existed, to reach goals they didn't know they could reach. As an example, good management at Kodak squeezed the most profits possible from their current technology in the 1970s. But a visionary leader of Kodak would have recognized the potential of the digital camera, and we all know how that worked out. A business needs good management to thrive in the day-to-day, but it needs visionary leadership to thrive in the future. The Kodak story illustrates what happens when a company's leaders are merely managers. On the other hand, the story of Honda's journey to victory at the Isle of Man TT races is a case study in what can be accomplished by good management under visionary leadership. It's the tale of how a fledgling motorcycle manufacturer, on the brink of financial ruin in the mid-1950s, overcame seemingly impossible challenges to rise to global dominance of racetracks and showrooms by the early 1960s. It's a story of how the inspiration of a visionary leader can become a bottomless source of sheer grit, making the impossible possible. Today, Honda is involved and often successful in virtually every form of motorsport around the globe. But there was a time when the idea of winning on the international stage was nothing more than a twinkle in the eye of its founder. So join me to see how that twinkle of an eye powered a company through a wild 7-year roller coaster ride, from its darkest hour to its finest moment. To appreciate what an accomplishment Honda made in conquering the Isle of Man TT, we need to understand where they started. Beginning operations in 1946 and incorporated in 1948, the Honda Motor Company was one of thousands of startups in post-World War II Japan. In the midst of the country's massive reconstruction effort, its people needed an inexpensive, reliable means of getting from A to B, usually with a heavy load. Immediately after the war, the most common mode of personal and freight transport in Japan was the bicycle. This set the stage for Honda's entry into the two-wheeler business. Recognizing the limitations of a human-powered bike, Honda took advantage of a surplus of small engines left over from the war and mounted them on bicycles, using drive systems of their own design. From the outset, Honda had a keen focus on innovation. Domestic competition was fierce, and founder Soichiro Honda firmly believed that the company's path to success would be through making products that not only outperformed the competitors, but were also known for being reliable. Since performance and reliability are typically at odds, improvements to both could only be realized by pushing the boundaries of current thinking. Early employees recall that Mr. Honda's first questions about any design were, "What part of this is new? And what part is different than other makes?" As the supply of war surplus engines dried up, Honda started making its own auxiliary bicycle engine in 1947. Called the A-Type, it was the first product to carry the Honda name. Because it was innovative with high build quality, it sold well. Honda followed it with the C-Type, a larger engine evolved from the A-Type. It too was a sales success, but Honda had ambitions to build more than auxiliary bicycle engines. That led to the Dream D-Type, which was the first motorcycle Honda designed from the ground up. It went on sale in 1949, and it was followed in 1951 by the E-Type, which had Honda's first 4-stroke engine. Sales of the D-Type and the E-Type were strong from the start. In 1952, Honda launched the F-Type auxiliary bicycle engine kit, marketed as the Cub. The F-Type earned a strong reputation for its power and reliability, and thanks to the marketing genius of Takeo Fujisawa, they were selling at a rate of 9,000 per month by the end of 1952. But success never had the folks at Honda sitting on their hands. The E-Type went through a series of upgrades over several years. They launched the J-Type Bentley in 1953 and the K-Type Juno scooter in 1954. As a showcase of innovation, the Juno was a complete departure from any other scooter design on the market. A small but important development in this early era was a message from Mr. Honda in the company newsletter of October 1952. He wrote, "If you're not number one in the world, you can't be number one in Japan." For employees, this opened their eyes to the possibility of competing with the world's best. The powerful bikes imported from Europe at the time made it all too clear that Japanese motorcycles were not up to world standards. And since Japanese manufacturers couldn't survive by keeping out the imports, Mr. Honda knew that they'd have to beat global competition to win at home. Many Honda employees would later cite these words as a source of inspiration, driving them to do their best work so as not to disappoint the old man, as Mr. Honda was affectionately known. But rising to global standards was no small challenge for Honda. Their main obstacle wasn't their designs or how many units they could make. It was in how they made those products. The precision parts needed for modern high-performance machines just couldn't be mass-produced with Honda's outdated tools and processes. And nobody at Honda understood this better than the old man himself, who convinced his partner Fujisawa that to succeed globally, they needed to make huge investments in new production equipment. So in 1952, they set out to make those investments. With a little more security than the belief that they could succeed, Mr. Fujisawa convinced bankers to lend this small company 450 million yen. This was a staggering leap of faith, since the book value of the Honda Motor Company at the time was about 6 million yen. With financial backing, Mr. Honda and others from the company set out to tour leading automotive manufacturing plants in North America and Europe, learning about the latest mass production techniques and buying new production equipment. Honda invested heavily in expansion in 1952 and 1953. By early 1954, they had a growing range of products and capacity to supply what they hoped would be exponential growth in demand. But they were actually sailing directly into a perfect storm. Japan's economy entered 1954 in recession, making it a tough climate for all manufacturers. Meanwhile, at Honda, one bad development followed another in quick succession, with compounding and crippling effects. For starters, the newest E-Type, which had its engine upgraded to 220 cc's in late 1953, had a serious defect. It routinely stalled at low speeds, which unleashed an avalanche of customer complaints. Honda warehouses were suddenly overfilled with unsold and returned bikes. The E-Type's problem was deeply concerning because it seemed impossible to diagnose. Some thought the only fix was a complete engine redesign. However, they eventually discovered the problem was in the carburetor, which Honda recalled at a cost of 80 million yen. But things in 1954 were bad on all fronts. Sales of the F-Type Cub, which had been Honda's biggest seller for some time, were dropping like a stone. Copycat products were flooding a market that was moving away from motorized bicycles to full-fledged motorcycles. Meanwhile, the J-Type Bentley was getting more than its share of customer complaints related to transmission and valve tappet noises. Worse yet, the Juno scooter was a sales flop. It failed because it was too innovative, making it overweight, underpowered, and expensive. Honda invested heavily in R&D and production capacity for the Juno, but after a series of upgrades over a few years, the investment was never recovered. Under the weight of costly recalls, slumping sales of their main products, and misplaced investments in others, Honda was teetering on the brink of financial collapse. And what looked like the death blow was just around the corner. Their first principal repayment on that 450 million yen loan was due in June of 1954, but the expected exponential sales growth hadn't happened. They simply didn't have enough money to pay their creditors and continue operations. And this is where I get to the Isle of Man TT. In March of 1954, As the Honda Motor Company was entering the worst financial crisis in its short history, Mr. Honda declared to all employees, and to all of Japan, that Honda would enter the Isle of Man TT races the following year. Soichiro Honda had been a racer since his youth, so it's no surprise that his company was involved in racing since 1949. Domestic competition was most intense in those early days at the annual Asama Mountain races. All of the leading Japanese makers entered this competition because they had quickly learned the old adage of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Honda's only international racing experience had been a 1954 exhibition event in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where they finished 13th, well behind the speedy European bikes. An exhibition event at Interlagos and races at home in Japan were on one level, but the Isle of Man TT was in another league. The TT was the premier international motorcycle racing event, and it attracted the world's best. In keeping with his words in the 1952 newsletter, Mr. Honda knew that to win in Japan, they must win at the Isle of Man TT. As Honda was entering the deepest depths of its financial struggles, when its employees and suppliers didn't know if they'd get paid the next week, and when imported bikes made the shortcomings of Honda's products painfully obvious, the company formally declared its plans to enter the Isle of Man TT. Mr. Fujisawa wrote this declaration, but it was Mr. Honda's dream that his partner put into words. This statement was sent in various forms to all Honda employees and across the Japanese motorcycle industry. Making the declaration seemed ludicrous, but it was possibly one of the finest examples of visionary corporate leadership in history. March 20, 1954. Some 5 years have passed since the founding of our Honda Motor Co., and I never cease to rejoice that the efforts of all of our employees have taken form in the achievement of our epoch-making advances. Since I was a small child, one of my dreams has been to compete in motor vehicle races all over the world with a vehicle of my own making, and to win. However, before I can become victor over the whole world, I must first, of course, assure the security of the business, obtain precision machinery and equipment, and create superior designs. I have, therefore, been devoting myself entirely to these points, and working to present superior practical vehicles to our customers in this country. Consequently, I have not had any free time for turning my energy to motorcycle racing until today. Now, however, reports on the recent international motorcycle race held in Sao Paulo have provided me with detailed information on the situation in the countries of Europe and America. I had thought I was seeing the world with a fair degree of realism, without being caught up in fixed ideas. But now I realize that, after all, I have been blinded by my excessive feeling for Japan in its present situation. Even now, the world is advancing at tremendous speed. Conversely, however, as I have always felt, I am filled with an abundant, unshakable confidence that I can win. The fighting spirit that is my nature will no longer allow me to continue turning away. Now that we are equipped with a production system in which I have absolute confidence, the time of opportunity has arrived. I have reached the firm decision to enter the TT races next year. Never before has a Japanese entered this race with a motorcycle made in Japan. It goes without saying that the winner of this race will be known across the globe. But the same is also true for any vehicle that completes the entire race safely. It is said, therefore, that the fame of such an achievement will assure a certain volume of exports. And that is why every major manufacturer in Germany, England, Italy, and France is concentrating on preparations with all its might. I will fabricate a 250cc medium-class racer for this race, and as the representative of our Honda Motor Co., I will send it out into the spotlight of the world. I am confident that this vehicle can reach speeds exceeding 180 km per hour. Even a superior aircraft engine has a power output of about 55 PS per liter, but this racer will have nearly double that power, at 100 PS per liter. When this engine is completed on the basis of our company's creativity, it will be no exaggeration whatsoever to say that it will rank at the world's highest levels of engineering. Since the motorcycle, a shining star of modern heavy industry, is a comprehensive business, it will require the highest engineering level not only of the engine, but also of tires, chains, carburetors, and other parts. To achieve this, it must be supported by meticulous attention to detail and unremitting effort. I address all employees. Let us bring together the full strength of Honda Motor Co. to win through to this glorious achievement. The future of Honda Motor Co. depends on this, and the burden rests on your shoulders. I want you to turn your surging enthusiasm to this task. Endure every trial and press through with all the minute demands of work and research, making this your chosen path. The advances made by Honda Motor Co. are the growth you achieve as human beings, and your growth is what assures our Honda Motor Co. its future. The scrupulous care that is required when tightening a single screw, and the commitment that refuses to waste a single sheet of paper, these are what will open the way before you and prepare a route for Honda Motor Co. Fortunately, our outside contractors, our agents, and our banks have given us their generous cooperation. I am, moreover, blessed with customers who join us as well to help us concentrate our entire power on this point. I see that Germany, though like us defeated in the war, has many industries that are reviving, and feel more than ever that our Honda Motor Co. must above all enter this race and complete it. We must gauge the true worth of the Japanese machine industry and raise it to a point where we can display it proudly to the entire world. The mission of our Honda Motor Co. is to enlighten Japanese industry. With this, I announce my determination and pledge with you that I will put my entire heart and soul and turn all my creativity and skills to the task of entering the TT races and winning them. This I affirm. Soichiro Honda, President. With these powerful words, Mr. Honda laid down a challenge not only to employees, but to all Japanese industries. He rallied the company and the country to rise to the level of world competition and to recognize the export opportunities this could create. The impact of such a rallying cry shouldn't be underestimated. As one example, Mr. Fumio Makoyama, an eventual managing director of Honda who joined the company in early 1954, said, "As soon as I arrived at my assignment in the Saitama factory, the place turned into a bloody battlefield. For about 2 months in a row, there wasn't a single day when I got home before midnight. For some reason, though, everyone was cheerful and full of energy. They didn't act as though they were suffering." Right around that time, the Isle of Man TT race declaration came out, and I felt as though a load had been lifted from me. It brought such a sense of hope for what lay ahead. With that to stimulate me, we started talking with each other as though we were going to take over the world ourselves. Even Kiyoshi Kawashima, who was accustomed to Mr. Honda's bold statements, was surprised by this plan. All of a sudden there was this declaration. I hadn't heard anything about it until then, so it came as a great shock. In Japan, we had been competing in all the races, but this was a whole different matter. At that time, I at least knew the Isle of Man TT races were the major races in the world, but I'd never dreamed of taking up a challenge like that. I asked if we were really going to compete, and the reply I got was, "No matter what happens, we're entering the race. If we dilly-dally now, we'll get left farther and farther behind. And you know, everyone is having a very hard time now. This is just the kind of time when people want to have a dream. To have flowers bloom tomorrow, we have to go ahead and plant seeds now." That's what the old man told me. Although the company was in crisis, its president had to keep up appearances, so Mr. Honda embarked on his planned trip to the Isle of Man TT in June of 1954. And what he saw shook him to the core. He had heard European racers were making nearly 150 PS per liter, but when he saw these machines, he was struck by the enormous technological gap his company would have to bridge in 12 short months. Years later, he talked about this experience as his greatest disappointment. What amazed me was seeing machines running with about 3 times greater power than we had been considering. From Italy, Germany, and England, they all came together to the Isle of Man, and I watched them shoot off like arrows. Not only were these machines unlike any we'd ever seen before, we'd never even dreamed of such a sight. When I went and saw that, my first reaction was a shock of disappointment. I had gone there after spreading talk all over Japan about how Honda would enter the TT races, so this was a terrible shock to me. What did I say? I wondered, and what am I going to do? Then I pulled myself together and took another look. After a good night's sleep, I went back and looked at the racecourse again the next morning. Then it came to me. These people here have a history, and that's why they can make machines like these. We don't have that history, but we've seen these machines, and that can have the same effect for us as history. A letter Honda wrote to Fujisawa at this time said in part, "I saw the race for the first time on June 14, and it was terrific. I learned a lot about various things, and now I'm glad to have my confidence back. I'm sure things are harder back at the company, but please keep up with it." Mr. Honda then continued his tour of Europe and along the way bought armloads of racing bike parts which he carried home in his luggage. Mr. Fujisawa greeted him at the airport with the news that the company had survived the worst of its financial woes. Fujisawa, always open and honest in his business dealings, negotiated short-term concessions with employees, suppliers, and bankers, giving the company the cash flow to tread water. Eventually, the Dream E problem was fixed, the economy was recovering, and Honda's sales were rebounding. But the company now knew its plans to enter the TT in 1955 were unrealistic. Nevertheless, they set out to design a TT contender with an eye to entering the 125cc class in a later year. This was an exercise in trial and error, because they didn't have the technical know-how of the world's leading race bike designers. They eventually borrowed heavily from bikes like the German NSU Rennmax and the 1956 FB Mondial they had imported from Italy. In January 1959, the Honda racing team finished the 125cc RC141. Its power output of 15.3 PS still fell short of the 16.5 made by their 3-year-old FB Mondial. They soon finished a 4-valve upgrade named the RC142, which made a respectable 17.4 PS. In 1959, Honda fielded both of these models at their Isle of Man TT debut. Since the TT began in 1907, it was always known as a grueling challenge. So nobody at Honda had high expectations for their first appearance. As ever, the old man's directions to the team were clear. Just finish the race. And 4 of their bikes did finish, placing 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th in a class of 34 entrants. This was a huge accomplishment for a rookie team, earning them the 1959 Constructors' Trophy. Racing news writers were impressed by the Japanese team's methodical competence and by their high-revving engines, which some said ran like Swiss watches. Honda had arrived, and they were serious contenders. Mr. Honda was exuberant. His vision of rising to the level of world-class competition was within reach. As he wrote in a special edition of the company newsletter, "I am extremely happy that we were able to achieve results like this. The team leader, the riders, and the mechanics all did splendidly. I want to thank all of you who created these machines. However, we still have to deal with the matter of 1st through 5th place." All of Honda's employees' spirits were buoyed by this result. They had genuinely earned a place among the world's best. Honda returned to the Isle of Man in 1960 with the 125cc RC143 and the RC161, their first entrant in the 250cc class. Expectations for their sophomore year remained modest, so they were happy to place 6th through 10th in the 125cc class and 4th through 6th in the 250cc class. By 1961, Honda's racing effort was clearly on the upswing. Their new 125cc 2RC 143 and 250cc RC 162 showed promise, and they had secured the riding talents of rising star Mike the Bike Halewood. With the ingredients for success in place, Honda's appearance at the 1961 TT was the triumphant realization of the audacious dream Mr. Honda had declared 7 years earlier. In their third TT appearance, Honda swept first through fifth places in the 125cc and the 250cc classes. Racing team leader Kiyoshi Kawashima recalls the feeling of realizing the dreams of Honda and all its employees. Just when the company was going through its most difficult time, it allowed us young members to initiate this challenging undertaking. When they lacked money, they didn't tell us to stop. The strength of the individual is limited. When an organized team goes to work, however, it has enormous power and can accomplish amazing things. When things were difficult in later years, I would remember those days, and then I could endure longer. I was able to hold on to the challenging spirit. Halewood was crowned 250cc world champion in 1961, the first of 5 titles he'd win on Hondas. And Honda's sales continued to grow, making it the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer by 1964. By the end of 1967, Honda had won 7 TT victories and over a dozen world championships in every category from 50 to 500 cc's. Soichiro Honda never excelled as a manager. He despised mundane business chores such as sales and accounting. That's why Takeo Fujisawa was his ideal business partner, a brilliant manager who could deliver the products of a brilliant technical mind to the world. But it was the spark of Mr. Honda's originality that lit the fire in the company. His vision instilled in Honda employees the belief that they could be the best in the world, and his conviction fueled that flame through flickering moments of near extinction, after which it came roaring back to unimagined heights. That, my friends, is what can be accomplished under visionary leadership. Thanks for watching.